Hey, DawgNation, happy Wednesday. Little late today, but for a good reason. I'm sure you saw a couple of moments ago. Five-star linebacker Smael Mondon has committed to the G. Big addition to Georgia's 2021 class. We'll start with a little bit of a look back on that. A lot going on in Athens as well as the Dogs get ready to take on Mississippi State on Saturday. Excuse me for that. That was quite a shock. But nonetheless, we're looking forward to big show today. Mike Griffith going to be here. The possibility that Georgia wears the black jerseys. A whole lot of fun on the way. We will talk to you about all of that. Possibility we see JT Daniels. That's on the table as well. So it's a big show. Glad to have you with us. DawgNation Daily. Daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Presented by Harrah's Cherokee Casino Resort. And it begins right now.
Today's episode of DawgNation Daily is brought to you by Harrah's Cherokee Resort. Find us online at Caesars.com/Harrah's-Cherokee.
Presented by DawgNation.com. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
No one will deny that 2020 has been a weird year, so anytime we get a chance to provide you a glimpse of normalcy, we're always really thankful for the chance to be able to do that. And just a few minutes ago here on the DawgNation video channels as we record this show live on a Wednesday morning, look at that. Yeah, you get to see that on your screen there. Five-star linebacker Smael Mondon committed to the G. So many of these moments over the years for DawgNation, so many of these moments for UGA, even the fun one here with the LSU hat being pulled away, an additional Georgia hat underneath. Mondon puts that on. Huge applause all the way around there. In what has been a very weird 2020, high school football has not been immune to this. The recruiting process has been maybe more different than anything has been in the sports world over the course of these last few months. To be able to do what we've done a lot, watch Georgia get a five-star commit, provide you coverage of that here on DawgNation. I got to tell you, a few minutes ago, that really felt really fun. So let me look back on this just for a moment, and then we will look ahead to everything going on around the rest of the University of Georgia scene as the Dogs get ready to take on Mississippi State on Saturday. So Mondon is a guy, and if you've ever read interviews with him, with Jeff at DawgNation.com or seen some of the video stuff that Jeff has done or maybe interacted with Mondon on a different platform, the one thing that you'll see is that he's really kind of a man of few words. This is a guy, and one of our commenters on the YouTube broadcast a little earlier said it perfectly, that he chooses his words carefully, and therefore when he does speak up, everybody leans in close to listen. I think that's completely true, and I would say that's obvious and self-evident on the basis of the way that folks reacted to Mondon choosing Georgia a little bit earlier. But he wanted to make the moment special, it's clear. And before he put on the Georgia hat and made the Georgia announcement, he gave what I thought was really a pretty touching speech about what this moment means to him, the connection to family, the connection to faith. This stuff always really works on me. And Mondon was great in terms of how he laid it out a couple of minutes ago. So before we do anything else on him as a player, let's take a moment to appreciate him as a person, and his own words allow us to do that.
I want to start off by thanking God. I pride myself on faith, and without him, I wouldn't be the athlete I am sitting here today. I want to thank my coaches, teammates, and most importantly, I'd like to thank my family. They have done so much for me throughout my athletic career, from picking me up to dropping me off every day to practice, to being the loudest at every game, win or lose. They motivate me to continue to play the game.
Those are heartfelt words. They're touching, and I think that's the dream that all of us would have for our own son, is that one day as a high school senior, he would have that same connection to family, that same connection to faith. Many of us at least feel that way. And for Mondon, that's a beautiful thing. And it's not nothing, and it's not an insignificant feat that he delivers a speech like that, knowing he's got local television coverage. There are thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people that'll see this on the DawgNation video channels. There's a lot of folks peering in. There's a live audience of his own peers there at Paulding County High School, and Mondon absolutely nailed that speech like a valedictorian. It's really very impressive and really good stuff for Smael Mondon. And then there was this. Maybe with a little bit of a nod towards the name, image, and likeness stuff that's on the horizon for college football. Mondon, knowing that his first name, Smael, has a little bit of a play on words. There's a synonym there. It kind of goes along with a word that's pretty common for all of us. And when DawgNation's Jeff Sintel asks Smael Mondon what Georgia fans can expect from him, Mondon fully embracing the kind of natural play on words that comes with his name here. It's a headline writer's dream, and it's also potentially a profitable thing for Mondon sometime in the future. Take a listen to this.
Smael Mondon, any message out there for the fans? What can the Georgia people come to expect? What will they come to expect from you as a Georgia Bulldog?
As a Georgia Bulldogs, all smiles.
What can Georgia fans expect from you? Mondon says, all smiles. You could certainly appreciate the idea of that, maybe one day being his own personal logo or, some apparel, somehow related to the smile for Smael Mondon. I think that he's already on the inside track and all that kind of stuff, and that's really good to see. This is a great one for Georgia. Mondon's a player we've talked about for quite some time, and it feels good to be finally getting a chance to hear some of the commitment pledges for some of these players that for months and months and months we've kind of dissected every little move that Mondon has made, the chatter about Auburn, the chatter about Tennessee. There were other finalists on the stage here, Florida and LSU. I don't know that anybody really took those particularly serious in this recruitment, but it's kind of nice and kind of fun to kind of be there now on decision day for Mondon. He did tell Jeff Sintel in his interview with Jeff that he was shutting things down now. This was the final moment for him. Obviously, that's not a binding referendum. Players can change their mind, but for now, that's the word. When it comes to Smael Mondon, you will take that as good news. And when Jeff Sintel joined us a moment ago, and I want to play this for you as a way of just kind of encapsulating the full value here of what Mondon means for Georgia, its pursuit of another elite class in 2021, how it was that Georgia won this recruitment. Here are a couple of sentences worth from our buddy Jeff Sintel, the DawgNation recruiting insider, kind of laying out exactly how all of this came together a moment ago, at least as we record this live. Here is Jeff on Mondon.
What really won this decision out was consistency. And consistency means the staff being in place, the defense being in place, the track record being in place, but also the consistent priority, we need you type communication that Georgia gave Smael Mondon Jr. Consistency was huge, and really this is a young man that everybody's got projections about how quickly he can play. I think immediately he would be a special team standout, going down the field, making a lot of tackles. He is a five-star recruit. He becomes the third five-star recruit for Georgia in this 2021 cycle. It bumps Georgia past Clemson to number 5 in the country overall on those 24/7 Sports composite rankings, team composite rankings that everybody looks at and pays close attention to. Georgia is now in the number 5 slot. Definitely 4 or 5 more slots to go.
So let me wrap this up by saying this. The word that Jeff Sintel used there multiple times to describe the reason why that Mondon chose Georgia was consistency. In other words, there's unrest in the Auburn program. Who knows what the future of Gus Malzahn is? I don't expect him to get fired at the end of the season, but that's a program that's not on particularly solid footing right now. The other school that Mondon may have considered closely, Tennessee, I mean, there are rumors and reports that the Vols, Jeremy Pruitt, the head coach, fired a defensive assistant coach during a game this year. There's obviously a lot of unhappiness with the way that Tennessee's playing right now. That's an inconsistent program. Georgia, Jeff says, provided Mondon the consistency he's looking for. And that matters. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this and pretend that the Mondon news does not come at a time in which a lot of Georgia fans are just kind of down in the dumps. You lost the 2 biggest games you played this season. Georgia couldn't get over the hump against Alabama, and all of a sudden now it's on the radar that Georgia could even lose to a team like Florida, an unforeseen circumstance over the course of the last 3 years. And Georgia fans are just kind of in a bad mood about all of this, which I totally get. But with Mondon making his decision today, it ought to be a reminder, not to be a throwback to what Smart said after the national championship game at the end of the 2017 season, when he said, "We're not going anywhere." I think the Smael Mondon news is a reminder of that. That, yes, the 2020 this season on the field, admittedly, has not been as good a year as Georgia fans want it to be. Losses in the big games, end-of-season goals now are essentially a non-existent probability for the Dogs, but Georgia still isn't going anywhere. And when a guy like Smael Mondon looks in the situation in Georgia, he may see a momentary blip on the radar, a bump in the road for what 2020 was, but overall, a coaching staff that remains in place, long-term trajectory goals that are still very much on the horizon. A Georgia program is still very much a present tense conversation for a 5-star linebacker. And that's not supposed to necessarily make you feel better about the games that Georgia lost this season and the continued wait for Georgia to get that championship ring, that national championship that so many UGA fans have been craving. But it is a reminder that the overall momentum for the program for Georgia does not slow down because 2020 hasn't been what it's supposed to be. And the folks who matter most are the ones who are telling you that. When a guy like Smael Mondon looks in on Georgia, he sees a place he can feel comfortable, he sees a place that he can be at home, and he sees a place that can win at the highest level. I'd take Mondon's words for that. And if you're a UGA fan that's been in a little bit of bad mood, it's easy to understand why. But the Mondon announcement today may be a signal that it's time to kind of start moving on and looking towards the future. My name's Brandon Adams, and this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented today by Harris Cherokee's Casino Resort. Hello to you, and thanks for being with us live on video today, 10 a.m., Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, radio at noon on Athens Sports Radio 960 The Rev, and as a podcast, wherever you find them, Apple Player, the Google Player, the world-famous DawgNation.com, Spotify, anything else. Just really glad to have all of you with us, and a huge thanks to our friends at Harris Cherokee Casino Resort for making it all possible. You see it there on your screen. Beautiful 2-hour drive from Atlanta. Either of the two properties, the original Harris Cherokee Casino Resort or Harris Cherokee Valley River. Fun gaming opportunities, luxurious gourmet dining, wonderful shopping experiences, a luxurious spa, wonderful accommodations. As said before, just a couple-hour drive from Atlanta, easy to get to Harris Cherokee Casino Resort. They've done the work necessary as well to make the entire experience healthy and safe for you. Social distance on the gaming floor now. That's a really fun thing to know, that you can be there, have a good time, get the getaway you need, while also having the peace of mind knowing you're going to be hopefully healthy and safe there as well. Harris Cherokee Casino Resort makes that all possible. By the way, if you have not yet become a member of Caesars Resort, I should say Caesars Rewards, to get the best that Harris Cherokee Casino Resort has a chance to provide for you, do that right now. Go to this website. It's Caesars.com/Harris-Cherokee. Caesars.com/Harris-Cherokee. That'll get you in touch with our friends at Harris Cherokee Casino Resort, and stop by and see them at either of their two properties, just 2 hours from Atlanta. Really fun getaway, and I know you need that right now. All right, let's move off the recruiting topic for a moment. Let's look back at the Dogs on the field, getting ready to take on Mississippi State on Saturday, with the possibility the quarterback change could be in the offering here after the injury to Stetson Bennett, and maybe just the need to give a bit of a boost to the Georgia offense. We'll follow that, and we'll see how that plays out coming up on Saturday. Let's talk more about that now. Around the Doghouse, delivered today by Marco's Pizza, and we're obviously openly speculating about this. The online chatter doesn't really slow down that this could be JT Daniels' moment. But let me tell you what you're not getting right now. You're not getting, and this is to be expected, of course, but you're not really getting any cooperation from Kirby Smart at all, the Georgia coach, about if it truly will be the transition to JT Daniels on Saturday. Now, he's also not necessarily quieting it down. It's sort of the dog that's not barking here, is that Smart's not saying that Daniels isn't playing. Tugwell, I guess, use a double negative in a sentence, but he's also not certainly confirming that there's some big, huge quarterback change in the making here for Saturday. So let me give you a little bit of Smart, who spoke to reporters again last night, and this will give you a little bit of a clue as to where things stand right now. First of all, on the status of JT Daniels, the door for the quarterback change was seemingly open because of Stetson Bennett. The door was open up on this because of the Bennett injury at the end of the Florida game a couple of weeks ago, and last week had Georgia played Missouri, it sort of seemed like Bennett might not be healthy enough to play in that game. How are things coming along right now? This is the update that Smart offered on Stetson Bennett last night.
Same thing with Stetson. He was out there able to go today and do some things, and he and DeJuan and JT and Carson all got work.
So Kirby Smart keeping the cards pretty close to the vest, but it sounds like Bennett's doing a little more now than he was. But is that enough to regain the starting job for Saturday? Obviously, it remains to be seen. As far as Daniels himself, the growth that he's going through with his health, getting more mobile on the knee, maybe more ready to play now than he would have been earlier in the season. There was at least a little bit of a brief update on that from Smart last night. Let me let you hear more.
He hasn't always worked with the ones, so I don't know where you would speculate that from. But his mobility has been better.
So mobility is better. JT Daniels, the rumors have been working with the ones in practice the last few days, and now more mobile and more ready to play. And look, it's obviously true that Georgia fans kind of want to see this on Saturday. They want to see something new. And if you want to go back and listen to Smart from a couple of weeks ago ahead of what we thought was going to be the Missouri game, at the time, Smart at least hinted at the possibility that he was open to a quarterback change for reasons other than just an injury to Stetson Bennett. I'll say what I've said before on this. is that I want to see JT Daniels play too. I want to see something new at quarterback, given the way this position has played. Now, earlier in the year, I offered some defense of Stetson Bennett. I think that Bennett, for a time, was playing better than maybe some folks in my audience were kind of giving him credit for playing. But let's face it, Georgia's losing its biggest games. Georgia's not getting it done offensively. There's no reason not to consider every option you have available. And obviously, JT Daniels will be the next guy on that list that we have not seen yet. So I'm going to Athens on Saturday in the hopes that I do see Daniels out there playing quarterback. And I guess it remains to be seen what color jersey Daniels will be wearing if he does indeed get that shot. We will talk more about the black jerseys before we're done on today's show. For now, it's Around the Doghouse. It's delivered by our friends at Marco's Pizza, America's most beloved pizza. It's real, authentic pizza made the Italian way. It tastes good, and it's great savings as well. And it's also healthy and safe for you and your family right now. It's baked in a 450-degree oven. Then after that, contactless, touchless, delivered right there to you. You can get the traditional pizza, or you can get the pizza bowl, which is all the great taste of a pizza without the crust. Just one of the really cool options that Marco's has available for you. And you also get special savings as well. You can get a large specialty pizza right now and a large 2-topping pizza, and that's just $23.99. Really good stuff, either online using the Marco's app or at marcos.com. Marco's app or marcos.com. That's how you can get in touch with them and enjoy our friends at Marco's Pizza as you watch some sports here heading towards the upcoming weekend. Or as I said before, well, before we are done today, we will look at the possibility that Georgia could wear the black jerseys on Saturday. We'll give you the online clues that have been out there that have led people to assume that might be a chance, and we'll let you hear Kirby Smart in his own words about the possibility that this could occur. He didn't outright shoot it down. There was at least that, so we will talk more about that here coming up in just a moment. There's also new news around the SEC. Another SEC team apparently dealing with a little bit of coronavirus. We'll touch on that. More rumblings and rumors involving the South Carolina coaching opening. We'll touch on that. So a lot to do on today's show. But for now, for the entirety of the scene in Athens as the Dogs get ready to return home on Saturday to take on the other Bulldogs, Mississippi State, let's talk to Mike Griffith here on DawgNation Daily, presented by Harris Cherokee Casino Resort.
From Athens and across the SEC or wherever the recruiting trail may lead, here's a DawgNation.com insider.
We'll sell to Mike Griffith here, who was a part of the Kirby Smart press conference both last night and on Monday as well. And the inquiring minds continue to want to know what's going to happen for Georgia quarterback on Saturday. Smart not really doing too much to help out there. But, Mike, as I told our audience a moment ago, there's kind of the dog that isn't barking here. While Smart isn't coming out and saying that JT Daniels is going to play, receiving an increase in JT Daniels' questions over the course of the last few press conferences, he hasn't exactly pushed back on those very much either. So Smart's not confirming anything, but he's also not confirming something either, which is, I think, part of the reason why there seems to be a growing amount of speculation that JT truly will get his moment maybe on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's interesting, isn't it? Kirby's not one to name quarterbacks. We know that. He keeps all his options open, and he doesn't want to let the other team know what he's doing. But it certainly does look like they're going in the direction of JT Daniels.
Yeah, I think so, and part of this even dates back to last week, or I shouldn't say. I mean, it seems like they're at least open to quarterback change, what I should say. And part of this dates back to last week when Smart acknowledged the chance that they may choose to go away from Stetson Bennett for reasons other than just injury. You know, Mark Bradley, the AJC columnist, asked him a week ago if Bennett was healthy, would he have started in the game that we thought was supposed to take place against Missouri? And Smart said that was a great question. So that, to me, is maybe the strongest statement Smart's made over the course of the last couple of weeks, at least in my mind, when it comes to quarterbacks, is that the possibility exists that a change could be made for reasons other than injury. And I think that stands as a pretty important lead-in to what we may eventually see on Saturday.
Yeah, I think it means everything to where the direction of the Georgia football program's going in general. I mean, if JT Daniels is the guy and he proves effective the last 4 games, he's probably the starter next year. If he's not, then he's probably gone and on to the next. And Carson Beck and Dwan Mathis, and if Vandergriff signs, which there's no indication that he won't. But I think the hopes at Georgia are that the JT Daniels turns out to be the guy, and you get at least a full year out of him next season, and he's good enough to play in the NFL like a lot of these other SEC quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think for me, and the one I've said for a while is, Mike, I want to see the Georgia quarterback situation as you move towards 2021 become a little more sensible. I think there's been way too much quarterback drama, and I won't go back through all the list of this, but I think there's some quarterback drama for Georgia. I think some of this may be an unforced error, and I'm ready just for that to kind of end. So I'm like you in one respect that the games that Georgia has remaining this season, we believe it'll get a chance to play 4 regular season games plus a bowl game. That's a chance for you to establish, of the quarterbacks on this roster, who do you potentially trust to be a starter for next season? And it stands to reason that one of those guys should be probably head and shoulders over the others, probably will be. That's what these remaining games are about. And then next year, you can have kind of a normal classic quarterback battle between a veteran presence, somebody that's played some this year, been on campus for a little while, versus kind of a hotshot incoming freshman like Brock Vandagriff, and you can let it play out. That's almost exactly what Alabama did this offseason between Mac Jones and Bryce Young, and in that case, the veteran won out. Could be that the veteran wins out for Georgia again next year, too, in a comparison with Brock Vandagriff. But I think for right now, you've got to kind of try to decide who that veteran presence is. Is it someone like Dwan Mathis getting another shot? Is it Carson Beck finally being a year older getting a shot? Or is it JT Daniels playing the way that you would hope a former 5-star who's had starting experience can play? But that, to me, is what the remainder of the season is about. Who is the guy currently on the roster in the best position to compete against Vandagriff next year? Because it can't be 4 guys. It needs to be 2. It needs to be a guy who's been here and a guy in Vandagriff who's young but has the credentials. That, to me, is the most sensible competition for next season.
Yeah, I would think so. I'd have a hard time believing a true freshman could come in and start even an early enrollee against Carson Beck or JT Daniels, if Daniels is effective, again. So, Kirby wants to win football games, and he's going to make the decision on who he thinks is going to make Georgia the best the rest of the year. You want Georgia to get it settled. I think, 2020 is kind of taking a toll on the Dogs between the injuries and, Stetson Bennett going 3-2 as the starter with some obvious limitations. To me, there's an excitement factor, though, with George Pickens being back. And, you think about it, George Pickens was really going into this year the best offensive weapon that Georgia had. And the guy's got 13 catches, for 140 yards. I mean, I might have projected he'd have that in one game at some point this season. But, the inability of the quarterback to get the ball downfield and the obvious limitations of Stetson Bennett have just taken George Pickens out of the equation. And what you're hoping for is that you get a quarterback in there that can get the ball downfield, that can hit the perimeter receivers. And once you do that, BA, once you stretch the field out again, that opens up some running lanes, opens up the possibility for more, explosive plays in the run game. Zamir White's truck sweep, untouched play aside, that was more about Florida's bad defense and a safety not fitting the right hole. So a lot of good things can happen once you fix the quarterback spot. I mean, it's really the fulcrum of the offense, and it's really been the downfall of Georgia football in 2020.
Yeah, I don't deny that better running game is going to follow a better passing game. That's just the way the college football is in 2020, that you pass to set up the run, seemingly now, whereas maybe in the past you ran to set up the passing opportunity. That's just not quite what football seems to be as much anymore. I guess the one thing, though, I've tried to tell my audience, Mike, this week is, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, is I do want to temper expectations for JT Daniels. There was a runaway hype train around Jamie Newman, and obviously in retrospect that seems kind of foolish. After Bennett did some of the things that he did against Arkansas and, against maybe even Auburn as well, there's a little bit of a hype train for him. The Tennessee game probably contributed some of that too. When JT Daniels first arrived here, there was hype around him. That seemed unrequited for a long time because apparently he just wasn't healthy. I do think that it's important to temper expectations for a guy like Daniels, who has now not played a lot of football in quite some time. I do think it's important not to expect too much from him in the early going here. Set a bar so that Daniels can maybe pleasantly surprise Georgia fans, maybe exceed those expectations, as opposed to setting the bar so high that it's almost impossible for him to meet them. I would hope that Georgia fans go into the game on Saturday with maybe a degree of tempered expectations. What are your thoughts about that?
It's a slippery slope because Georgia football doesn't have tempered expectations anymore. There's a certain expectation now that this program's going to play like champions. The head coach is the one that tells us that. They recruit 5- and 4-star players like today. I feel like the days of tempered expectations for Georgia football are behind us now. And, JT Daniels was a 5-star. He was the number 3 quarterback in the country, only the second quarterback in USC history to start as a true freshman. I have a hard time tempering that, especially when you're playing a lousy Mississippi State team. If you temper your expectations, there's really not much look forward in the holidays. I'm not going to tell my kids to temper the expectations for Santa Claus. I'm not going to tell Georgia fans to temper the expectations for a 5-star quarterback that could have gone anywhere in the country when he transferred and chose Georgia. The only thing that I might temper is the expectations for Kirby's play calling and willingness to throw it in the fourth quarter, with a 4 or 5 touchdown lead. I think Georgia's in a place, BA, where they need to win impressively. I think Kirby, the ruthless Kirby that makes the cold-hearted decisions and wants to shut out everybody, needs to turn into the ruthless Kirby that lets his offense light up the other team like a pinball machine. The days of running out the clock in the fourth quarter are behind, because Georgia needs to make a statement that they're willing to play football like the other championship programs, whether it's Alabama or Clemson. I stopped short because I don't think Florida's a championship program, and I think they're going to get exposed on December 19th. But I think that Kirby needs, and like LSU last year, right? Kirby needs to show that he really is all in. He hired Todd Monken to come in and build an offense that Georgia fans would be proud of and that recruits would want to come and play for. And I dare say Todd Monken did not come to Georgia with this concept of coaching a 5'9" former walk-on that can't throw a 35-yard accurate pass downfield on a line. So this is an opportunity for Todd Monken to run his offense with a capable quarterback, with the number one receiver back involved in the game, a very capable offensive line, and a schedule that should see Georgia winning by at least 4 touchdowns in every remaining regular season game.
All right, so I want you to put a pin in that, because I do want to come back to that topic, because I do think how Georgia performs in these remaining games does matter. So before we get more into that topic, let me talk to you about the jersey situation. A lot of UGA fans are curious, do we see black jerseys on Saturday? There's some social media evidence that would seem to suggest it's a possibility. Smart, much like the quarterback topic, didn't say much about this yesterday. Do you get a sense one way or another of if the new black jerseys that now have like the dog collar thing around them, do you get the sense that Georgia may be breaking those out on Saturday night?
This would seem to be the game you would do it. I mean, your last regular season, you only had 4 home games this year. And you've got 2 remaining, and one of them is Vanderbilt, who has black in their color scheme. So this would seem to be the game to do it, in a night game after a 2-week break with a lot of the fan base, probably hurting a little bit, smarting. I mean, it's tough. Just a lot of tough breaks for Georgia. I mean, having bye weeks or open weeks after you lose to Alabama and Florida is just salt in the wound. It's just a horrible vinegar in an open wound. It's a horrible feeling to have to chew on a Florida loss for 2 weeks, especially as inept as the quarterback play was. And really over the last 3 games, I mean, my goodness, 44 completion percentage, 8 interceptions, 4 fumbles at that quarterback position. There's no getting around it. It's been historically bad. I don't know if there's been a worse 3-game stretch for Georgia quarterbacks. Someone out there may be able to research and find a stretch with 8 interceptions and 4 fumbles over 3 games. I certainly can't find it recently. So you want to recapture some of the excitement. Now's the time for Kirby to play every card he's got. Like I said, score every point that's available and do everything he can to get that momentum back, because Georgia football had a lot of momentum, as you know, BA, as I know, a lot of energy. And right now, it's just not the same. And we're going to find that out in the early signing period with how they close. And in February. And you've got to get more offensive guys to Georgia, right? You need another running back. You need, potentially maybe a second quarterback. Who knows? You need more receiver prospects, more tight end prospects. The offense needs more skill position influx. So I think it's very important that he needs to get as much energy generated as possible over these last 4 games by any means necessary.
All right, so let's talk about that, because I've talked about that a lot this week, that if you look at what Florida did at the end of last season, lost to Georgia, yet really went on a streak where they started beating teams badly. And that had not always been the way under Dan Mullen. For a while in the early stages, they played some SEC games and some Power 5 games, probably a little closer than they were necessarily supposed to be. But after the Georgia game last year, that kind of stopped. And for the most part, that carried over into the start of this year. I would say that Florida's dominance of lesser SEC opponents were a predictor for the offensive explosion the Gators, for the most part, have experienced this year. I think the same thing could be true for Georgia, but Mike, I want to be very clear about this. Based on the way that Georgia has played recently against supposedly overmatched SEC opponents, I'm just not sure how capable Georgia is of that. You know, a moment ago you referenced the idea that Smart doesn't want to keep his foot on the gas offensively, and maybe that's true. Obviously, I have no way of knowing. But I think a lot of this has just been a lack of ability to go out there and just totally throttle SEC teams. You know, Georgia played Kentucky a couple weeks ago in a relatively close game, 14-3. You know, I don't know that Georgia was capable of beating Kentucky worse than that in that spot. Last year, as a 24-point favorite, Georgia lost to South Carolina. I'm not really quite sure they were, they had the offensive firepower to make that game any different than it was. A&M last year was closer than it was supposed to be in the month of November. There have just been some games lately against the better teams where the Georgia offense just hasn't been good enough to build the cushion, build the difference in the game. And so I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that even though all of the remaining games for Georgia this season seem like comfortable point spreads and should be easy wins, I'm not so sure that Georgia's explosive enough offensively to make them easy wins. I'm curious to find out if I'm wrong about that, but I don't go into Saturday's game saying I know I'm going to see 35, 40 points from Georgia, the kind of thing that allows you to win a game like this by 25 points. I just don't know that Georgia's got the firepower to do that right now.
Yeah, Kirby made a reference after the Alabama game. I don't think he was happy with the pass-run balance ratio. I think it was almost 2-to-1 pass to run, and he said we got to get back to playing our style of football. And it was a reference to a more balanced approach, and it led to that 14-3 win over Kentucky. I don't think there 14 passes thrown in that game, and 2 of them were interceptions by Stetson Bennett. It was before the shoulder injury. So, I think that his thought process at that time was they were still in control of their destiny, and that was going to be the formula to win games. Was a balanced offense, protecting the defense somewhat, because you see what happens when you go 3 and out. I mean, that's what led to Florida's offense in the first half. It was as much Georgia's horrible offense and going 3 and out on 4 out of 5 series. You mentioned the South Carolina; they had almost 500 yards total offense against South Carolina. 3 turnovers and 2 missed field goals that undid them in that game. Plenty of offense, but bad turnovers and bad execution. So they've proven capable. It just, Kirby gets more uncomfortable when there's more passes thrown. And, you can be an explosive offense and still be good at running. I mean, look at Ole Miss's running game. Everybody thinks it's just pass. It's not. Take a look at Ole Miss. They're among the league leaders in the run game. So there's a way to do it. But I think where Georgia is right now, I think you've got to get your pass game involved, and you've got to change the way defenses are playing you. I think we saw in the opener against Arkansas that Georgia wasn't afraid to pile on points there in the second half once they got the momentum going. Same thing against Tennessee in the second half of that game. So I think the potential is there for it. But to your point, I think there's probably still a little bit of caution knowing that, that Kirby's way in the past. And let's be clear, his way in the past has worked pretty well, I might add. If they play a little bit more defense against Alabama and Brenton Cox doesn't blow contain, maybe we're talking about the 2018 SEC champions here if Brenton Cox, doesn't mess up on his assignments in that game. But, this defense right now, I don't think that defense is there with all the injuries, Jordan Davis, Richard LeCounte, Monty Rice being a step off with that foot. I don't think this defense is where it's been. So, I do think we'll see a bit of an offensive explosion. I can't tell you what the play call is going to be halfway through the fourth quarter when they're up by 21 or 28 points. But I do think Kirby needs to be mindful that recruits are watching, and critics right now are taking their shots at Kirby Smart and his ability to build a championship program.
Yeah, I said this on the games this past weekend. It was interesting to me that the 2 teams that play kind of a fun style, Ole Miss against South Carolina, pulled away in that game late. Florida against Arkansas continued to pull away with explosive offense throughout the game, whereas the team that kind of eats its vegetables, Kentucky defense running game, they allowed Vanderbilt to get closer to them as that game went along. I do think fun football is a path to victory in 2020, and I guess my point, Mike, and I'll give you the last word on this, is that I hope to see it. Even against what we think is overmatched teams, Mississippi State and the rest of the way against South Carolina, Missouri, Vanderbilt, teams like that. If we do see it, I won't take it as nothing. I'll take it as a sign of improvement, the fact that Georgia's capable of beating up these overmatched SEC teams because, last year Georgia was struggling to score even 20 points in some of these games. If Georgia can comfortably coast against the rest of its schedule, I'll take that as a pretty good sign for 2021.
Yeah, also take it as a good sign that the players aren't opting out, right? You see what happens at South Carolina, and guys quitting on their teammates, and everybody over there getting all, hey, don't say that. You don't know this. Listen, I know this. Those players are on scholarship, and you at least finish your regular season, man. Schools don't pull academic scholarships when players get injured. To me, there's kind of an unwritten contract that you're going to play through the regular season. If not for yourself, you've got other teammates out there, and now they're going to be affected to win their games, and their legacy is going to be affected for those seniors that try and finish. So very refreshing to see Richard LeCount last night say he's going to try and finish the year. Justin Schaefer, echoing that on Twitter, and the Georgia guys saying they are bought into this program. And to me, that's a healthy sign. When players start opting out and quitting on their teammates and quitting on their program with games remaining in the season, that's a red flag that the coaches lost the locker room. And unfortunately, I think we're going to see more of it around the SEC before the end of the year. I think South Carolina is just, maybe the tip of the iceberg in that respect. But the good news is that the Georgia players are still bought into one another and still bought into their head coach. And above all else, to me, that's the most important thing is we finish 2020. Is to kind of stay bought in, right? And kind of like all of us and how we're all kind of being careful amid these COVID times. We're all sick of it, but we got to stay bought in and stay safe through the holidays, through Christmas, wait for the vaccination. And that's where Kirby's at, everybody trying to stay bought in, get through this difficult season until you can get to February signing day and set your sights on a championship in 2021.
Yeah, listen, it's going to be an interesting path to see how it is traveled by Georgia over the course of the next couple of months. Mike, we appreciate you being here to talk about that here on DawgNation Daily, presented by Harris Cherokee Casino Resort. I look forward to reading at DawgNation.com and then talking to you again very soon.
Appreciate it, B.A.
Let's take a look around the rest of the league. This is SEC Through.
Yeah, Mike, in a lot of ways, just has a little bit different way of looking at this stuff, and some of the things that he says maybe a little bit different than the way I would say it. DawgNation's kind of a big tent. There's, I guess, room to talk about these things in a somewhat different way. And so it's interesting to hear his perspective on that. I mean, I think the one thing that I try to have appreciation for is that the challenge of building Georgia up to where it needs to be for 2021 is certainly a possibility, but it's not a birthright. And it's not as simple to say, well, if it wasn't for bye weeks and if it wasn't for injuries, if it wasn't for that, then Georgia would be exactly the way it was supposed to be. That's letting Georgia, I believe, off the hook too much for its own responsibility in some of this kind of stuff. I'm not going to excuse make about anything. The task of building up Georgia offensively to be as high-powered as Florida was 2 Saturdays ago, as Alabama was a couple Saturdays before that, as LSU was in last year's SEC championship game, and kind of on and on you go. That's hard work. And it's not as simple as saying, well, hey, you just need one lucky break and everything kind of falls into place. No, that's not true. It's also not true to say that it's not going to happen. But this is real challenging work that the Georgia program is going to undertake here. And Mississippi State has been awful, but frankly, Georgia has not exactly dominated awful teams when you talk about Power 5 level, SEC level opponents, maybe necessarily as much as they should. So Saturday is another data point in trying to determine just how far away Georgia is from the championship standard. Go out and beat Mississippi State by 30-plus points. Go out there and make them feel like they have no chance from the word go. Then I'll take that to mean something. I'll take that as a sign that, hey, maybe this evolution is taking place. And by the way, if JT Daniels plays and contributes to that, all the more reason to feel better about the future. But these remaining games for Georgia the rest of the season, they do matter in terms of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how all that plays out. SEC Through coming up. I want to go through a lot of the stories around the league. Before we get ready to do that, let me give you a reminder about my friends at the Technical College System of Georgia. I'm a huge fan of what they do for a simple reason, because for a lot of traditional four-year schools, when you go to them, you're saddled with debt, and then you're left to wonder, well, once I get my degree, what are the job prospects for me after doing that? With the Technical College System of Georgia, that's never going to be the case. They're going to set you up to succeed, be on your way to a rewarding career. You can be that person with no student loans in a career that you love. It takes, in many cases, just 2 years or less to be a part of a lucrative field and doing some great things in that field because of what you learn as a part of the schools that make up a Technical College System of Georgia. Tuition's affordable. Their career placement rate's like 99%. It's more than so. It's an unbelievable opportunity. If you want to find out more about this, how you can be on the way to a rewarding career, or that person in your life, son, daughter, whomever else, that you want to put them on the path towards success, go to SucceedSooner.com. That's SucceedSooner.com. There are big class opportunities starting up as we head towards the spring, so go ahead and be looking at some of that. SucceedSooner.com for a whole lot more. You can start applying today for those spring classes with the Technical College System of Georgia. Get a rewarding career, no student debt, big-time opportunity to succeed when you go to SucceedSooner.com. All right, let's fly through our SEC through here for just a moment. I think it's kind of interesting to see some of the social media clues that are out there as far as the next South Carolina job. I saw where Gunnar Stockton, the 2022 quarterback commit, has now followed Billy Napier on Twitter. Napier's the coach of the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. He is less famous than a guy like Hugh Freeze, who we've talked about a lot, but there's no doubt Ragin' Cajuns ranked in the top 25. They've been good now for a couple of years. There's no doubt that Napier's a coach on the rise. He's been places like Alabama. He's been at the big programs. He's had a history as a recruiter. He's made Louisiana into a legitimate football team. Louisiana Lafayette, we used to call them. He's made them into a legitimate football team, so he's going to have his choice for some big-time jobs. And it is kind of thought that he's in the mix for the South Carolina situation as well. You can also check the betting markets on some of this kind of stuff. Napier is the current favorite at 3-1 to get the job. This stuff, frankly, sometimes matters, sometimes doesn't. I don't view betting odds on coaching hires to be particularly predictive, but Napier is the favorite. Hugh Freeze just after that 4-1. You've got Shane Beamer, the former Georgia assistant, now at Oklahoma, at 5-1 to get that job. And then you start talking about Jimmy Chadwell, the Coastal Carolina coach, Luke Fickell, the Cincinnati coach. I would imagine Fickell's probably going to hold out for a Big Ten job. Tony Elliott, the Clemson offensive coordinator, he's at 7.5-1. Scott Satterfield, the Louisville coach on this list, at 8-1. Brent Venables, we talked about before, the Clemson defensive coordinator, he's at 5-1, or I should say 10-1 to get the job. So that's the list that's out there as South Carolina looks to make its coaching hire. And we will see if making a firing first gives South Carolina a chance to also have first pick of the available coaches that are out there, because there are other jobs that are going to probably come open. Carolina getting a chance to go first, or they get a chance to benefit from being first on that. Speaking of the South Carolina Gamecocks, as Mike mentioned a moment ago, they are down now their two top defensive backs, J.C. Horn, who really had a good career in Columbia, and Israel Mukwamu, who had the 3 interceptions against Georgia a year ago. Both these guys have now opted out on the remainder of the season now that Will Muschamp is gone as South Carolina coach. That's been controversial. Some Gamecocks fans haven't been happy about that. Mike has obviously had his say on that, but one of the things that the Gamecocks had done well for the most part was have some success in the secondary, although their pass defense had become pretty porous over the last couple of weeks. But the two top guys there will kind of move on now and get ready for the NFL. But as Kirby Smart said when he spoke to reporters yesterday, what are you opting out for right now? There's no guarantee there's going to be pro days. There's no guarantee there's going to be, opportunities to showcase yourself as a draft prospect. If you want to move up draft boards, the best way to do that might be on the football field right now, but that's not what they're going to do. Both Horn and Mukwamu moving on for now. Arkansas has got a couple of issues with the coronavirus. I think most of this is kind of off-field coaches that's not expected to impact their game against LSU on Saturday. We already have the one postponement, Texas A&M for the second consecutive week against Ole Miss. There is a little bit of this, though, going on in Arkansas right now. Sam Pittman, of course, had coronavirus last week. Now a couple of other staffers have it. But for now, according to the Advocate and other outlets, Arkansas LSU is still on. The deadline for rescheduling a different game obviously came and went on Monday night. So the SEC trying to make its schedules a little bit more nimble, but we're beyond the window for that right now, and we'll continue to cross our fingers and hold our breath that these games stay on track. This is around the time a week ago that some of this kind of stuff started falling apart. So keep that in mind. We'll make that your SEC through. And here on DawgNation Daily, presented by Harris Cherokee Casino Resort, let me give my attention now back fully to Georgia. And I talked about this with Mike Griffith a couple of minutes ago. The possibility that Georgia might wear its black jerseys on Saturday. I've got my black pullover on today, DawgNation style, maybe in solidarity with the team. The reason why this is even a thing right now is, first of all, I think some fans were anticipating one of these final home games might provide that opportunity. And there was also the video that got passed around on social media. I think we have a short clip of this that we can show you here for those of you watching on video. Some folks working on the black jerseys, adding a patch to those. Those are the new real black jerseys with the dog face logo on the shoulder, the dog collar going around the neck. apparently getting those ready. The video would seem to indicate, this is Community Athens on Instagram, apparently getting those ready to maybe be worn on Saturday. So that is out there. A lot of folks were kind of left to wonder on that. Kirby Smart was asked directly about the possibility of the alternate uniforms when he spoke to reporters yesterday. Smart keeping his cards, once again, pretty close to the vest and all this. Take a listen to this.
Uniform changes for this weekend?
We're not sure yet. We've contemplated some of that, but we're not completely committed to it yet. We want to wait and see on a couple things with our leadership and some of our other senior groups.
I have evolved on this. I used to be totally against the alternate uniforms, partially because of the conversation they generated. I've kind of softened my stance on that just a bit. You know, if fans want them, it seems like they do. Players want them, it seems like they do. Then Georgia should just go ahead and give people what they want, even if I'm a little bit more of a traditionalist. Here's what I do hope happens, though. If Georgia does wear these this Saturday, I hope it's not treated as a blackout. First of all, their stadium's not going to be full anyway. You can't really do, blackout with 20,000 fans in the stands. But, I've said before, I'm in favor of black jerseys as a fashion statement. I don't love them as a motivational ploy. I hope it's not one of those things that Georgia surprises people by wearing the black. I guess there's a possibility they could even do a different uniform combination, bring back the red pants and wear those with the black jerseys or something like that. That's getting a little too crazy for me. But once again, I'm also kind of an old man when it comes to some of this stuff related to tradition. But either way, I just hope Georgia announces it, send out the tweet, show the uniform combination off, don't leave any room for mystery or anything like that, because that's kind of a bad memory for a lot of Georgia fans. So hopefully that will be the case as we head towards Saturday. Break them out. I think it'd be fun. In an otherwise kind of meaningless game, why not show off kind of a cool uniform, the black jerseys under the lights with the, the flashing LEDs. That'd probably look pretty cool anyway. So I don't mind Georgia bringing them out. Hopefully, though, they don't try to make it a surprise. Hopefully, they don't try to make it a grand reveal, because I think that's making more of it than it possibly should. And I think stuff like that is the reason that Kirby Smart hasn't worn them in, really, I guess, since 2016. It's the extra drama that goes along with the uniforms that I believe Smart himself finds distasteful. All right, so as we wrap up here, I want to mention this really great tweet last night from Georgia safety Richard LeCount regarding rumors that maybe he's played his last game for Georgia. Now, LeCount's dealing with a pretty serious injury going back to the motorcycle accident that he had. But what LeCount says is two things I want to address. No, I'm not opting out the season. I will finish my career as a Bulldog on that field with my brothers. And he says that hunger inside of me has only grown bigger. Now, that's great to hear. As I said before, the health status of LeCount is still something I'm not quite so sure about. My understanding is he had a pretty significant motorcycle accident, so I'm not sure how healthy he is. But the fact that he wants to play does matter to me. And all of this is a signal. The Mondon commitment earlier, the LeCount reaffirmation of his Georgia status in the tweet last night, this is still a program on firm footing. The 2020 goals may not quite come together the way you want them to, but the program trajectory overall is still pointing upward. And we'll see you tomorrow on DawgNation Daily, presented by Harrah's Cherokee Casino Resort. And on video. Time now for our R.S. Andrews cool down. Busy day of video for us already, by the way. Huge thanks to our friends at R.S. Andrews making it all possible. Air conditioning, heating, plumbing, and electric. You can trust R.S. Andrews to do all that for you. Your water heater goes out in many cases. R.S. Andrews can replace it for you the same day. Last night, I finally broke down and had to turn my heat on. I don't like heat. My family wants heat all the time. Kids like to sleep upstairs with the heat on. I would prefer, frankly, I just don't like to get too hot in the house. But last night it was cold enough. I was like, maybe I got to crank this heat on. Thankfully, when I flipped that switch, the furnace fired up the way that it's supposed to. If you're worried that yours is not going to, well, get the peace of mind that you need by getting your system tuned back up to factory fresh specs with our friends at R.S. Andrews. You can find them online at rsandrews.com. Oh, we've already done a decent amount of comments going back to our Smael Mondon show a little earlier, so we probably won't go real long right now, but we will give you a chance to weigh in on anything that you want to. Let me pull back up the broadcast here. On YouTube first, we'll do a little... Actually, I started on YouTube yesterday. I do remember that. So let me go to Facebook first today, and then we'll do some YouTube after that as a part of our R.S. Andrews cool down. All right, on Facebook, here we go. A few comments and ready to go. All right. Hugh Nash says he's going to curl up and cry like a baby. I wonder why that is. Randy Hall says, start with Facebook. Yes, sir, we sure did. Brandon Dawson said, would Bobo and the fans be happy with hiring him as a quarterback coach next season? I would love to see it. I think Bobo is an exceptional coach, and I think that wherever he goes next, be it staying at South Carolina or wherever else, I think that Bobo would have a real chance to be successful. I think there are a number of South Carolina potential head coaches that could conceivably keep Bobo in place as offensive coordinator, especially given the relationship that he has with Connor Shaw, who's now a staffer there, and potentially with 22 quarterback commit Gunnar Stockton. Coming back to Georgia, first of all, it's not apparent that Bobo would even want to do that. And second of all, he's not going to do that as a quarterback's coach underneath the Todd Monken. You know, Bobo is either a head coach again, or I think that he's absolutely a hireable guy as an offensive coordinator for the very biggest programs, running his offense, leading that. It hasn't gone well for him at South Carolina, but I don't believe that Bobo's reputation as an offensive guy has been tarnished by this. So would I ever welcome back Mike Bobo? I'd do so with open arms at Georgia. I'd love to see it. I don't think he's coming here, though, to be a lieutenant underneath Todd Monken on the offensive side. I think Bobo is of a higher stature as a coach than that. Michael Webb on the subject of the uniforms, kind of comparing it to Alabama. Yeah, I'm a big believer that the best teams in sports have maintained traditional uniforms. Yankees, Alabama football, the Lakers have all of a sudden now kind of become one of these teams that wears a lot more of the non-traditional stuff. So maybe that's an argument in favor of the fact we're just in different times now. So generally speaking, I am a traditionalist. If you ask me which uniforms I like the best, they're going to be the ones that never change. Pittsburgh Steelers, Boston Celtics. Those are the uniforms that I like the most in sports. But that's just not what the majority of people kind of want. And so I am honest enough to give you my own personal feelings, but also open-minded enough to respect the feelings of the majority. I don't believe the majority views things the same way that I do, that if you want to be a college football power, a blue blood, then you need to kind of maintain some sense of tradition. But let's face it, huge programs like Ohio State, teams like that have essentially worn different uniforms every week at times. So it's just kind of not what it was. I've always felt like it was a branding issue, that if I turn the TV on and I don't recognize the team that I'm watching because they're wearing such a weird uniform, then you've lost a branding opportunity. It's not like pick your favorite fast food restaurant. It's not like one day they're going to develop a wildly different color scheme just for 1 week to just kind of shake things up and be different. That's a lost branding opportunity. People would drive right by the restaurant. They wouldn't know which restaurant that it was. I would say for college football, the same thing is potentially true, that when I turn on the TV, if you're wearing something so different from what I expect to see you wearing, then I don't necessarily know it's you that I'm seeing, and that's just lost opportunity. But that's not the way the majority of the people feel, and so I guess I've now tried to respect the majority on that. Chase Smith says, why such an offensive bias? Dogs beat Arkansas 37-10 by 27. Florida beat Arkansas 63-35 by 28. But the media said Georgia was nearly upset by Arkansas, and they said Florida dominated Arkansas. So there was a headline at one point in time by one of the national websites that talked about a near upset for Georgia against Arkansas. That was obviously a ridiculous headline. I'm not even going to attempt to defend that. It was a ridiculous headline. There's also a bias in favor of offense compared to defense. We've acknowledged that before. But if I gave you the choice of having Georgia's defense or Florida's offense in 2020, is there anybody that wouldn't choose Florida's offense? Randy Hall asks a good question. Where's my cool-down commitment chain? Here's a true story. There was a guy selling something at the Georgia-Florida game that was, he didn't call it a commitment chain, but it might as well have been a commitment chain. Big rope chain links, big Georgia G. It was a commitment chain. I was going to buy it. I was like, this is going to be great. People have been wanting me to wear the commitment chain. I wanted to wear one. Here is one. It was $30. I don't mean to be cheap, but it seemed like a lot for what was essentially Mardi Gras beads, like fancy Mardi Gras beads. Maybe he just looked at me and thought I looked like a sucker, thought he was going to get $30 out of me. But I didn't buy it because it was $30. But I had a chance to buy like a full-on true commitment chain, but I'm not spending $30 on it. Maybe I should have. Philip Jordan Wells said he missed the show, and I'm glad you're here now. Michael Webb says, with Mondon, I can see the T-shirts now. Reasons to smile. Yeah, I like the idea of that. I think that'd work well in kind of the name, image, and likeness arena in which we're about to exist. I think that'd be really fun all the way around. By the way, I think we're going to have former Georgia quarterback David Green on the show on Friday, so that'll be a fun addition to the program. David's going to be signing autographs at the UGA bookstore on Saturday, so I think he's going to be with us on Friday. That'll be fun. Green Soldier weighing in. Good to be able to see that. G. Grace, Bama boy, and the subject of Charlie Strong being the next Alabama defensive coordinator. Obviously, those rumors have been kind of out there that eventually that job might belong to Strong. It'd be a good hire if he's able to make it. I'm guessing some of this is kind of somewhat related to Will Muschamp, who I don't know is just kind of the rock-solid DC hire he would have been maybe at one point in time. I mean, his last stint as a defensive coordinator was not a particularly successful one. Dan Pirro says both JT and Carson can still redshirt if they play in all the final games. So this year there is no redshirt. Everybody gets an extra year of eligibility. So the 4-game thing and those typical redshirt rules, none of those are in place this year. It's an across-the-board free year of eligibility for every player. So, yeah, they can play, they can not play, and it all kind of counts the same. Dallas Schwartz on the subject of JT Daniels. What if he plays and plays well? How will that make Georgia fans feel about the games this year that he didn't play in? It'll be treated as controversial, and I do think that Smart would do himself a favor by having a good explanation for why, kind of how it's unfolded that way. Whether Smart does that or not, I don't know, but Smart does hurt his credibility with fans. Forget how media feels about it. Ultimately, that doesn't really matter. But I do think some fans question the decision-making, and when Smart doesn't give a clear and cogent answer for why Daniels may be ready now but wasn't ready for earlier games, I think it'll leave them wanting more. And I think fans are fair to feel that way. Drew Odom says, wouldn't practice jerseys be more appropriate for the remainder of the games? See, this is the feeling that I know kind of exists out there. I'm just here to tell you, though, I do think that you should view these as more than just practice games. If Georgia goes out and beats Mississippi State 38-3 on Saturday, 48, who is Georgia typically doing that against when it comes to SEC opponents the last couple of years? As somebody mentioned, yes, Georgia beat Arkansas by 27 earlier this year, and that looks like a pretty good win now, or at least, going on the road doing that's not anything to apologize for, but the first half in that game was awful. There are a lot of moments in which the Georgia team against SEC opponents just kind of scuffled a bit. So Georgia, if it's capable of dominating these opponents for the rest of the season, would be a sign that that things may not be all that far away from being able to be fixed. So I treat them as more than just practice games, I guess the point that I'm getting to. We're going to do 2 more minutes. Jay Shipe says, seems like the toxic environment at UGA is just a walk in the park compared to LSU. Yeah, obviously referencing what Cade Mays may have said there. And we haven't talked a ton about the LSU situation, the USA Today report about the sexual assault allegations. I mean, I do think there is more that I want to hear about that at face value. What USA Today reports obviously does not look very good. I am a big believer in due process, though, and I think one of the things that can be controversial in my mind, and I think should be controversial in everyone's mind, is that when these allegations are made and they are serious, and I think we should take them seriously, but we should also understand the difference between a Title IX tribunal for sexual assault and the other forms of potential judgment against, whether it be a regular student or player or whatever else. Then in a Title IX situation, you don't get a chance to face your accuser. You don't get a chance to offer legal representation for your own side of the story. And that's been a pretty big deal around the country the last couple of years. The questions of, well, is that fair to those who are being accused? Now, listen, there's a way of having that conversation without also belittling the very serious accusations that have been made by the women who've been affected by this. When you talk about a court of law, you think about in a criminal trial, it's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's in some cases a very hard standard to meet. But in a civil trial, you don't have to be guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. You simply have to have what's called a preponderance of evidence, more likely guilty than not, which is essentially a 51% standard. And so, I would feel a lot more comfortable when, whether it be players, regular students, whatever else, I'd be a lot more comfortable about their guilt being decided within the confines of a court of law. Not necessarily criminal. I think civil court is fine. But with some sort of legal opportunity for due process. On the LSU situation in particular, the reason why I haven't talked about it in the show is because I don't really know all the inner workings of that, and frankly, it's not that relevant for Georgia fans for me to kind of dive into it. But if I did dive into it, that's one of the things I would be talking about is, let's make sure that we respect the accusations that are being made while also providing some sort of due process to answer against those accusations. So that is that. Scott Harris says, no red pants with the black jerseys. Yeah, that's like one of the things that I hope that we don't have, is one of these things where it's like, okay, it's black jersey, silver breeches this game, but then like 3 games from now it's like red pants, black jerseys, or red jerseys, red pants, things like that. I will admit, I don't know if I've ever said this in the show or not, once Georgia actually wore those red pants against Arkansas, I didn't actually like them as much as I did at first. The white stripe down the side of those is actually, for my taste, too wide. I do like uniforms. I like uniform talk. The white stripe was a little too wide for me. Once I saw Georgia wear them, I didn't like them as much as I thought I would. Kevin Cook likes the idea of the seniors voting for what to wear, and I'm sure they'll have a lot of influence on this. Keith Foltz just want to see Georgia hit some wide receivers. Yeah, that'd be about right. Philip Jordan Wells showing up late and giving us all the Smael puns that have kind of puns, I should say, the Smael puns that have already been given. Joel Moody says it'll be interesting to see which seniors opt for another year of college football. It will. At a place like Georgia, NFL-type seniors, I think, are looking forward to maybe going on to the league. I think that the middle-level programs may end up benefiting from that a little bit more. All right, I got to get ready to go. Appreciate all of you being here. Stephen Wainwright, he says, do you think that South Carolina will go after Dan Lanning? According to what Ray Tanner, the athletic director, said, is they are looking for an offensive-minded head coach. Now, that may not stop them from pursuing Brent Venables, and if you're going to pursue Venables, maybe you would consider someone like Lanning. But Tanner, the athletic director, has said that their first line on the agenda is to try to find a way to score points, which would seemingly think you're going after an offensive-type guy. DogFan3 says, who's next on commitment watch? That's a good question. Like, when is Nyland Green going to make his decision? I have no idea. There are a lot of guys out there that I really don't know what they're about to do. So we'll try to see if we can get something out of Jeff on that come Friday. Jay Parker on the subject of the 85 scholarships. It's a good question. Are you still capping 85 with the guys coming back? I believe that is the case. And so this is like a lot of things the NCAA does. In politics, sometimes you call it an unfunded mandate where, like, you make a law, but you don't come up with how to pay for it. College kind of did this for, like, the spring sports. They gave all those guys and gals an extra year of eligibility, but a lot of the programs said we can't afford to pay the additional scholarship. So it's like the NCAA does things because it sounds good. They feel like they're going to get some good media coverage for it. But in some cases, like the spring stuff, there are a lot of programs who simply couldn't afford to pay the additional scholarship money along with the players that had already agreed to come into the program as incoming freshmen. Now, you could say, well, why doesn't the college just give them a break on the tuition? That's a good question for a lot of reasons across the board academically these days. But nonetheless, you saw some of this in spring sports. I'm guessing you'll see some of the same thing in football too, where maybe there are some players that like to come back to a program, but they have to be made assured they'll even have that spot remaining, because managing the 85 still is a thing that every program's going to have to do. All right, we're going to go for now. Appreciate all of you being here today. We will see you back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for DawgNation Daily, presented by Harris Cherokee Casino Resort. Let me also remind you to check out the AJC, ajc.com. Continuing, there's some interesting news related to a recount yesterday. I'm sure you probably read that. Online at ajc.com. NBA draft tonight. All the steps the Hawks are taking to try to get better. So you'll continue to follow all of that. And just continued pursuit of best remedies to deal with the coronavirus. That's obviously out there as well. So listen, there is a lot going on. A really cool thing about the Big Green Egg as well, and how it can help you smoke up some good ribs. If you want that alternative to a Thanksgiving dinner, maybe you can get some information on that online at ajc.com as well. Either way, just really appreciate you checking it out. Atlanta News Now at ajc.com. That's Atlanta News Now at ajc.com. Also check out my friends at RS Andrews online, rsandrews.com, for all your air conditioning, heating, plumbing, and electric needs. They'll take good care of you. They show up on time. They do the work that's promised for the price that's promised. It's why I love recommending my friends at RS Andrews. Y'all have a great day. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for DawgNation Daily, presented by Harris Cherokee Casino Resort. I'll look forward to talking to you then, everybody.